Vladimir Putin will be traveling to China in October for the Belt and Road Initiative Forum. And this is huge news. And it's news that has been known. And I'll show you how China has, first of all, China extended the invitation and Putin accepted it relatively quickly. But there's always speculation because if you remember this summer, Vladimir Putin was slapped with ICC sanctions. And those sanctions stipulated that Putin was a war criminal. And according to the Rome Statute, any signatory to the ICC would need to arrest Vladimir Putin or issue an arrest warrant if he entered their sovereign territory. So if they're going to comply with ICC rules, which in effect are US and Western rules, mainly for underdeveloped African countries, if you're going to follow the ICC, if you're going to follow the so-called International Criminal Court and its supposedly just diktats, then you're going to arrest Vladimir Putin. It's the reason why Vladimir Putin did not attend the BRICS summit, the 15th BRICS summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's because South Africa is the signatory of the Rome Statute, and the United States twisted its arm and said, if you allow Vladimir Putin onto your territory, you're going to have to arrest Vladimir Putin. So Russia was the adult in the room and said, all right, we'll accommodate you, South Africa. We care about the summit. We're not going to let anything take away from BRICS here. And we'll stay back. Sergei Lavrov can go, and I'll join by video link. No problem. And in effect, Russia, of course, next year, Russia's going to host the BRICS summit, and Russia played a big part in this expansion of BRICS and all of the other outcomes of that monumental and historic summit. Now, Vladimir Putin is going to go to China, and Bloomberg wanted to take credit for a so-called breaking exclusive report. And here it is. So this report was August 29th, says Putin agrees to visit China in first trip since arrest warrant issued by the ICC in March. Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed to make his first foreign trip since the warrant for his arrest on alleged war crimes was issued by the ICC. Russia is preparing Putin's visit to China for the Belt and Road Forum in October, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter who asked not to be identified because the issue is sensitive. Putin has accepted the invitation from Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend the event, one of them said. Putin hasn't left Russia since the court in The Hague announced the warrant in March, though he visited Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine. He skipped the BRICS summit in South Africa after the government made clear it would have to comply with an order to arrest him as a signatory of the ICC. He also told Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi that he won't attend next month's G20 summit, though India isn't a signatory to the court. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said earlier this month that he expected to host Putin for talks in August. Instead, Erdogan plans to travel to Russia, Sochi next week to meet with the Russian leader. Dmitry Peskov didn't immediately respond to a request to comment, and China's foreign ministry didn't immediately respond to question outside of normal business hours. So essentially, this is supposedly anonymous sources, okay? However, let's be clear here. The Western mainstream media didn't break anything. Bloomberg didn't break anything, and I'll show you why. Back in July, you had the Global Times report Putin's visit to China during BRI Forum in October shows Russia's support to China. Vladimir Putin's visit to China during the Belt and Road Forum international cooperation shows Russia's support to China, and the two countries are expected to enhance cooperation during the visit. Vladimir Putin's visit to China is scheduled for October when they will host the One Belt, One Road Forum in China. Putin's aide Yuri Ushakov said on Tuesday, according to Russia's state news agency TASS, we received the invitation and plan to go to China, Ushakov said. So there you go. There you have Bloomberg puffing its chest out at the end of August, saying, we broke the story. Vladimir Putin is going to go to China. Wow. And he's going to do it despite the ICC ruling, despite the ICC arrest warrant. And Russia in July 26th had announced that, of course, it's going to go. And, of course, Putin's been to China 17 times. There was, of course, the latest March meeting in Moscow that occurred between Xi and Putin, which was a huge deal. But you remember right before the conflict, Putin was in China during the Beijing Winter Olympics, and they released a huge document, right? Russia and China did, outlining their support for each other. So, in effect, no breaking news here. The mainstream media tries to take credit for things that it never should get credit for. This was always known, but it's important to cover. And the reason why I want to cover this is because oftentimes, I'm going to show you the present. I'm going to go backwards, okay? I'm going to show you from present to the recent history how Russia has always been part of the Belt and Road Initiative's plans. Now, Russia is not an official member of the Belt and Road Initiative. Russia has its own trade integration plan called the Eurasian Economic Union, which includes several Central Asian and Eastern European neighbors and countries. So Russia is not an official member, an official signatory of the BRI, but Russia is very close to the BRI and has very similar plans for global integration and trade, interconnectivity. And so I'm going to show you why all of the media reports that you see, if you have heard in recent years, the narrative around the Belt and Road Initiative and Russia, it's been that there may be problems, there may be conflicts, there may be clashing between China and Russia over their attempts to expand their sphere of influence economically, that their plans to expand trade may run into each other, like literally as if they are two runaway trains headed toward a crash. Nothing could be further from the truth. There was always alignment. There was always pronounced alignment between the two. And I want to just show you a couple of articles from an important source. I think everyone should read this source, okay? It is the briefing. Actually, I want to let me pull up a different one here. That's I'm gonna show you that one, but this is the one I want to show you. So this is from Denzin Shear and Associates. So it's a Hong Kong-based investment law firm that has a pretty big presence all across Asia. And this is the Russia briefing. So it has pretty robust ties with essentially all the countries of Asia, including Russia. And Chris Devonshire Ellis, who is one of the major stakeholders in this, Denzin Shear and Associates, they write good pieces on the information we need to know about the Belt and Road Initiative, around trade integration, China's role in it, Russia's role in it. So in April of this year, they wrote, China's Russia Belt and Road Initiative continues apace in Russia's Far East. So Khabarovsk's BRI investments reached $1.6 billion in 2022, with China trade up 31%. So Western BRI analysts have often stated that China's BRI investments into Russia have effectively stalled following the Ukraine conflict. However, they miss bilateral subtleties. In fact, China's investment into Khabarovsk's Krai province in Russia's Far East reached $1.6 billion in 2022, said regional governor Mikhail Dergarav. Dergarav said 26 new investment projects worth 133 billion rubles were launched in the area in 2022, including large-scale infrastructure projects meant to help build the Pacific Railroad. This project is comparable to the historic construction of the Baikal-Amur mainline railway. It's the first private railroad in Russia to have a length of 500 kilometers. In a short time, we have built 100 kilometers. The Russian Pacific Railway, also known as the Northern Latitudinal Railway, is a project designed to expand capacity along the existing Vladivostok eastern terminus of the Trans-Siberian Railway and then head north and further into the Russian Arctic. It is being designed with an annual capacity of 23.9 million tons of cargo and will shorten route deposits in northern parts of Western Siberia to Russian ports in the eastern seaboard and ensure development of Arctic and Russian Pacific seaboard. So here's the map here, what we're talking about. Far East. The immediate precedence has become an upgrading of Trans-Siberian rail capacity towards the east and trade with China in East Asia. Western analysts often get Chinese BRI investment data into Russia wrong because of a combination of a lack of ground research, geopolitical misunderstandings of the China-Russia dynamic, and, of course, biased geopolitical perspectives. In fact, China has been investing in Russia and continues to do so. Often this goes under the radar and isn't mentioned as BRI due to political considerations. Having Chinese investments entering Russia hasn't always been the way in which Russia wishes to promote such investments. However, that doesn't mean they don't exist. Among these more opaque investments into Russia's Khabarovsk last year include a mining and processing plant in Kutian gold deposit in Tergoro-Chumakansky, and a tin ore mine and processing plant in Solnachnaya, while a copper and tinning producing plant in Solnichi district is also nearing completion. Chinese investors have also begun developing the copper deposit called Milisky. So there you have it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is Russian-China development. It is Belt and Road development because China considers these investments to be Belt and Road, even if Russia is not a formal member of the Belt and Road initiative. So there's always been synergy. There are projects underway. And so Putin's attendance at this BRI forum is a lot more than just a diplomatic message and a political message, which it is. It's a statement. It is saying that I have security and I know I am secure in China. I know which is my closest friend, which is my most important friend, and that's China. And I don't have to worry about going to China because China is not going to listen to the diktats of a U.S. and Western backed institution like the ICC, one that is fraudulent, mind you, and does not actually live up to its name. But that's not all, because that's just a tip of the iceberg. But this is going to ramp up. China is planning to ramp up Belt and Road Initiative investments. This is from August 28th. Moscow and Beijing discuss attracting China's SOEs into Russian infrastructure projects. The Russian Ministry of Economic Development has stated that Russia and China are interested in attracting investors into Russian domestic infrastructure projects, localized production, and oil refining. China hosted a meeting at the ministerial level, Russia-Chinese Permanent Working Group on Inter-Regional and Cross-Border Cooperation in Special Economic Zones last week. So this was written at the end of August. So this was the third week of August. The Russian delegation was headed by Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Dmitry Volvak, while the Chinese side was represented by Deputy Minister of Commerce, Lin Ji. The group was originally established in 2021 of January. At last week's meeting, the Russian side discussed Chinese involvement to help implement investment projects in Russian transport infrastructure, construction, deep processing of oil, gas, tourism, food industry, fishing industry, solid waste management, as well as localization of production in Russia. They said in a statement, the Ministry of Economic Development said in a statement. Russian and Chinese companies have already been jointly active in various projects, the flagship being the Moscow-Kazan high-speed railway, which will be operational in 2024, in time for Russia to host the next BRICS summit to show off the completed railway. China's CRRC has been assisting with the track and will also provide rolling stock. Did you hear that? There will be a launch of a high-speed railway, the Moscow-Kazan railway, and it's going to be launched in time for the BRICS summit next year. So this is how deep the Belt and Road investment goes. It is not just about if you're a member or you're not a member. It is really about how to integrate trade regardless. And China is willing to do that with anybody. And Russia is its biggest and arguably its most important partner, and vice versa. So at present, right now, it takes 12 hours to make the journey from Moscow to Kazan. The high-speed rail link will reduce that to 3 hours. Kazan is Russia's fifth largest city and an important hub for China-Russia trade. So Russian banks are sanctioned by the West, making them concentrate now on domestic infrastructure projects. China is a good match, given their own infrastructure build expertise. You don't say. Both want to build railway, highways, ports, and airports, which all provide cash flow returns that can be paid out as dividends. According to Volvak, Moscow is now discussing with China joint projects in the development of alternative energy sources, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, digital, and bioeconomy at the same time. Russia, what the hell? Russia is interested in Chinese investments in transport infrastructure and the development of cross-border communication and power lines in the area. So they're ramping it up, everybody. So I don't need to continue there. That's the proof. That's the proof in the pudding that Russia is not excluded from this. And this now, I'm just going to show you quickly why Russia, first off, would want to attend such a forum, the Belt and Road Initiative Forum. Why this forum? Why not just go for an official visit? Well, the Belt and Road Initiative is quite successful even amid this really difficult economic time from the world. Most of the world is experiencing slow growth, negative growth, but BRI economies, trade is booming. 7.4% from January to July, an increase in trade volume between BRI economies, faster than overall trade growth as a whole. So in the first 7 months of this year, China's trade with countries along the proposed Belt and Road Initiative reached 8.6 trillion RMB, or 1.212 trillion US dollars, up 7.4% year on year, said the General Administration on Customs. So it's, as the 10th anniversary comes up in October, you are having trade with BRI countries growing faster than overall trade, which only raised 0.4%. So BRI is lucrative. It is a fast-moving, well-oiled machinery of development. And that is why Russia would want to join. And not only this, but China and Russia have a pretty good track record of escalating and increasing trade amongst each other and between each other to their own benefit. So China and Russia are on pace to exceed their goal of 200 billion US dollars of trade volume. And the trade this year alone, in the first 6-7 months from January to July, has surged 36.5% despite a global economic downturn. The data shows the two nations' cooperation in trade has reached beyond commodities to a full-scale industrial chain, noting that deep integration and cooperation will further unleash the trade potential between the two neighbors. So exports from China to Russia served 73.4%, and meanwhile, imports of Russian goods and services also increased substantially at 15.1%. So year on year, looking from a different perspective, the growth has slowed slightly in the first 6 months of the year. China's trade surged by 40.6% year on year, customs data showed. So there's massive growth, okay? Massive growth between these two countries. Cooperation is now extended beyond traditional areas such as commodity trade and is evolving faster into a wide-scale industrial chain cooperation that can withstand headwinds. So this is an unprecedented level of growth, all right? Unprecedented level, even if it might not match the last 6 months, even if there's some slowdown because of the world economic slowdown, it is massive growth. So that alone demonstrates why Putin would want to go. It does send a political message that Putin knows who his best friends are, who his good friends are, who his fraternal friends are, allies are. China is the biggest. Now, the narrative, right? You could say, one could argue, well, that might be now, but there likely are still problems because what about all those mainstream media reports saying that Russia and China, despite all their friendship, have economic competition issues and that there are problems between the BRI and the Eurasian Economic Union, and Russia wants to lead the trade integration push, not China. China, vice versa, has the same feelings. Well, this negates history once again, my friends, because there has always been, and I'm going to show you, both from China and Russia's side, dating all the way back to the beginning of the Belt and Road Initiative, 2015, not necessarily the beginning, but close to the beginning. It launched in 2013, wasn't that well developed in 2015. But here you have the Global Times. This is actually first from Xinhua. Putin saying that the EA-EU and Belt and Road integration will bring enormous opportunities, meaning the Belt and Road Initiative and the Eurasian Economic Union, they're not apart, they're not separate, they're not in competition with each other, but that there are enormous opportunities to work together. Russia and China's joint efforts to integrate the Eurasian Economic Union framework and the Silk Road Economic Belt Initiative, mind you, it was once called the New Silk Road, and Then it became the One Belt, One Road, and now it's mainly called the Belt and Road Initiative for short. Will create development opportunities for both sides in the region, said Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg. This was in 2015, in June. The Russian president made remarks when answering a question raised by Xinhua President Kai Ming-ju at a meeting of the chiefs of the world-leading news agencies on the sidelines of the 19th St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Chinese President Xi Jinping brought the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013 as a bid to increase cooperation and advance the development of countries along the Silk Road ancient route. The EAEU, which groups Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, having also signed the agreement, is a union dedicated to regional economic integration. Dovetailing the Belt and Road Initiative in the EAU's development strategy bears immense significance to Russia and China, which will help strengthen bilateral cooperation, advanced technologies, transportation infrastructure. Putin said, so Putin himself said, no, we are not in opposition and competition, that these two are going to be synergized, that they will be able to be collaborative and integrated. So this is all the way back in 2015 that Putin was saying this. Now, in 2018, okay, Xi Jinping had this to say: One Belt, One Road in the EAEU synergy is going to boost the region's development. And in 2018 of May, the EAEU signed an agreement on trade and economic cooperation. So there you have it. The synergy of China's One Belt and One Road initiative and the Eurasian Economic Union will give impetus for economic integration in the region and facilitate its sustainable development at the same forum, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, back in 2019. We have agreed on linking the Belt and Road Initiative with the concept of the Greater Eurasian Partnership put forward by Russian President Vladimir Putin. They can quite supplement each other, which I am deeply convinced of, and will give a strong impetus for regional integration in the interest of general sustainable development. On May 17, 2018, the EAEU and China signed an agreement on trade and economic cooperation. The deal is aimed at creating conditions for improving mutual trade between the EAEU members and China. However, it does not stipulate canceling duties or automatically lowering non-tariff barriers. So the important thing here is that not only is Putin going to China for the Belt and Road Forum, but that it has deep meaning. It has a political message, a strong political message. The message being that the Russian president and Russia as a whole knows who are its friends, right? They know that China can be trusted to uphold what is quickly becoming a multipolar world, to uphold the notion that the ICC as a institution that's hijacked, completely controlled by U.S. foreign policy diktats, that China will not recognize this institution if it is going after one of its biggest allies, and flagrantly ignoring international law, because if international law was the concern, then you'd have the United States at The Hague. You would have the collective West, all of them, standing at The Hague in some capacity. And you would have an acknowledgement of the realities of this proxy war, which China has acknowledged from the very beginning. So that's the political statement, that Russia knows that China can be trusted. But the Belt and Road Forum is an incredibly important event in its own right. You have major infrastructure development projects like the Moscow-Kazan high-speed railway as part of Russia's participation bilaterally in Belt and Road investment, even as it is leading its own integration project. And you have these two projects ever so synergized. You have these two projects working together. You have China and Russia working together. And of course, this fits within the global context of a multipolar world where Russia and China are leading the way in integrating Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America together against the citadels of empire, the citadel of empire of the United States and its willful vassals. That these countries, China and Russia, can bring economies together and help raise the development level, the standards of living of all people, particularly in the global south, is really what is at heart, or what is at the heart of this BRI forum, what is at the heart of the Belt and Road Initiative, what is at the heart of the Russia-China partnership. You hear Pepe Escobar talking about it all the time. He can go over the international north-south trade corridor. He can go over all of these pipelines, all of this infrastructure being developed, and all of it leads back to China's One Belt, One Road, Belt and Road Initiative, and Russia's own role in de-dollarization, regional integration, as Russia begins to develop into and stand up as a sovereign, dignified, independent player on the world stage. It is not where China is economically, no, but politically now occupies a role that has really propelled, I think, Russia's economy to a place, I think, much more important than its size portends, truly. But China is the center. China is the engine. China is the true leader. Even if it's not leading in a hegemonic way, it is leading by example. It's also leading in the ways in which it cooperates with countries like Russia. So these two countries are the future. This meeting is huge because it is saying, you, collective West, you, the United States, do not call the shots anymore. Your rules will not be followed in a multipolar world unless you agree to make those rules with us together. Because, mind you, all of the moves of Russia, China, these integration projects, none of them preclude participation of the United States and the collective West. It is the collective West that has taken themselves out of it. You heard Russia, the Russian side during the BRICS summit say, Western countries won't be invited to this. But it's not because Western countries couldn't have been a part of it. It's because the way the collective West has behaved toward BRICS members, China, Russia, especially with the Ukraine war, especially with the sanctions, that is unacceptable. That is against and antithetical to the BRICS. So if the United States and the collective West want to end sanctions, they want to pull back on the unilateral military aggression, if they want to stop the attacks, propaganda attacks, all of this covert psyops, proxy wars, if they want to stop all of this madness, if they want to stop these dangerous war maneuvers, then surely they can be invited to work together with the global south and the multipolar world to make the future better for all of us, to make sure we all have a brighter future. But of course, we live in the real world. And the real world says, and the real world tells us that the United States and the collective West don't want to be part of these infrastructure projects. They want to destroy them. And so that is why Putin and Xi Jinping, and that's why Russia and China are getting more and more close. They're synergized in their values and their principles at very key levels, especially when it comes to trade integration and respect for sovereignty and win-win cooperation. They both think alike in that way. They don't have the same governments. They don't have the same systems. People get caught up. Russia's capitalist, China's socialist. In respect to these key international economic and political principles, Russia and China are synergized. And that's why the Belt and Road Initiative and the Eurasian Economic Union were always synergized from the beginning. And that is why Western mainstream media reports have always been misleading. They've always been trying to sow a wedge between China and Russia. They've been trying to play out this fantasy that has long been abandoned now, of trying to split Russia away from China and vice versa. That strategy, while you may still hear mumblings and rumblings over it, and maybe certain sectors of the elite will say, oh, well, we need to do it that way. It's not going to work because there is acknowledgement, there is an understanding among even the most crass and idiotic and pathetically desperate warmongers at the top of the U.S. foreign policy establishment that it's just not going to happen. So the Belt and Road Initiative, the EAEU, Russia, China, these are the forces propelling and leading the charge for a multipolar world and for one that is economically prosperous, one that will build a better future for the masses of people worldwide, which have been stolen from, plundered. We're talking about Gabon, we're talking about Niger, we're talking about African countries living in desperate poverty because of the legacies of colonialism and the continued imposition of Western plunder and US-backed plunder, the continuous consequences of US militarism around the world. This is the root of the problem that the Belt and Road Initiative, Russia's integration projects seek to resolve in ways that are possible without having to engage in out-and-out confrontation. That is what makes Putin's visit coming up in October so important. It's not just about sticking it in the eyes of the collective West, even though that's what it is. This is not untrue, but it really, truly is about the future and how Russia and China are at the head of it. It gives hope to the global South. It gives hope to the global majority. And it should give hope to all of us that the sun is setting on the US-led empire and the neocons and the chicken war hawks and the rabid profiteers that want to take everything and strip every bit of wealth and human rights away from the people. This is what Russia and China are fighting. And this is why Putin is going to make his first visit since the arrest warrant by the ICC to China, because this is the world they're going to build, regardless of whatever the United States, the ICC, you name the unilateralist-led institution, you name it, Russia and China will stand together no matter what they throw at them. And that is fact. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.